The prophet Daniel ate nothing but vegetables, and it helped him face the struggles in his life. This episode is Pure Veggies, right here on Savoring Our Faith on EWTN. It's always tough getting anybody, especially our kids, eating vegetables, but I think these recipes are gonna make them hunger for more. We've got a ginger carrot soup that's gonna be so creamy and delicious and savory, perfect for a cold night. Chill it, you can even eat it for summers. Also, we're gonna have a nice stir fry, which will be meatless, but there will be protein because we're gonna actually grill some tofu in some savory Italian seasoned breadcrumbs, and it'll give some crunch, depth, texture, and a delicious flavor for everybody. And then the final thing we're gonna be making are just some hand-cut fries, and we're gonna make some dipping sauces to add with it as well. And I think that fries, a perfect starch, but it is a vegetable, healthy enough, and I know it's gonna be great for the entire family. So, the first thing we've got to do is get the carrots ready. Now, I've just peeled these out, and we're going to use the carrots in two different applications, and so I want to try to make sure that they're evened up. And the first thing we're going to do is to get these cut down in small pieces so that it breaks down in the liquids for our carrot ginger soup. So in this soup, there will be some, obviously, carrots, obviously some ginger, and we're going to actually put in some garlic as well. This is going to get pureed beautifully, and it's going to also get hit with a little bit of cream. And so we're going to just get this kind of sauteing into a little, keep it easier. Get this sauteing with a little bit of butter, turning up the heat, and just getting it all nice and delicious. Now, vegetables is just one of these things that people, for whatever reason, they get kind of scared of. I'm not sure why. Well, I think honestly it's because the way people prepare it, it can kind of come across as so mushy, and that's not a good thing, especially for kids. So here what we're gonna do is add a little bit of garlic, onion, and we're also gonna infuse some ginger as well. So we're just gonna use a little half of an onion, sauteing that with the carrots. And so what we're gonna do is just make sure that we peel this out and then throw it all in there. But we know vegetables are so good for us. The doctor says it. Mom's been telling me I need to eat more vegetables. And as a matter of fact, there's a great food movement out there that wants to make sure that we eat as many natural foods as possible. I think one of the great food writers would even say, the more things that come out of the ground, the healthier for you. And you know what? Why is that the case? Well, I think God had something to do with it as well. So we've got about a half a cup of onions that I just sauteed up. I'm going to add it to the carrots themselves. This is all going to get cooked together, but it takes a little bit of time, all right? So let's get a garlic clove in here. So just smash out one garlic clove, and you can actually keep it whole. So here, just smash it down, get the peel out, and then we're also going to do something with the ginger. Carrot and ginger is a great combination. There's a savory quality to the ginger itself that helps with the sweetness of the carrots. But this is kind of like a gnarly looking vegetable, but it has some great health properties also. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to just use a little bit of this ginger. I'm going to peel it so that it's just going to be easier to grind. I'm actually going to use a little microplane and just grind a little bit of it into the actual soup itself. Good. So now that we've got this kind of peeled out, I'm just going to use a little microplane and saute. I mean, you can even smell it all automatically. You know, when I was a kid, if I got sick, sometimes my mom would even just boil some ginger, and that would kind of serve as a tea. And it definitely made things, it warmed me up, most definitely. Great, so now that we've got the soup base all ready, I'm just gonna do a quick little cleanup and get my stir-fry veggies all ready so it's nice and simple. And we're gonna follow up with some hand-cut French fried potatoes. Our vegetables, where do they come from? They come from farms, right? And from farmers or your backyard farm, which basically means the people have to cooperate and collaborate with God. Some of the most faithful people I know are farmers because they depend on God's goodness. They can plant all they want, but it's God who provides the rain and the proper sun so that they can have a harvest good enough to feed all of us. So, thanks to you farmers. Now the stir fry is obviously going to be all vegetables, but you need a little bit of protein in it, and so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give some tofu, some fermented soy. Don't tell your kids that because that might actually freak them out, but it'll be delicious, and it'll have almost like a texture to it that will be crisped up because we're going to actually use some breadcrumbs to give it some texture. So here's what we're going to do. You've got some tofu, and this is a very extra firm tofu, and I'm going to use just a couple pieces, and I'm going to make almost some fillets of it all right? So basically about a little bit more than 1/2 inch, and we're going to actually cut them into almost like big thick chicken strips, because somehow restaurants make chicken strips square these days. So what we're going to do is make basically strips of this. We're going to easily put it in some breadcrumbs, press into it so that it gets nice and crispy, and then we're going to actually saute it in a little bit of peanut oil. And then this will be set aside and used as the topping for all the vegetables. Now, vegetables themselves, they obviously come in a whole bunch of different varieties, and they all have super healthy properties to it. And again, it's very difficult sometimes to get your kids to eat vegetables. And honestly, I think it's in the way you prepare it. I remember one mom saying to me, you know, my kids don't like vegetables. And I asked her, well, how do you make it? And she explained it to me, and I said, well, I wouldn't eat that. That's just not tasty. And I gave her a recipe. She had her kid make it with her. And guess what? That daughter now eats broccoli. And it can be done. It really can be done. It just requires a little bit of creativity and obviously a little bit of know-how, and to make sure that the textures are okay. I'm adding a little bit of peanut oil to this little wok here because I'm just going to saute very quickly all of these tofu strips, so to speak. All right. While this is happening, I see that my carrots and my onions are sauteing well. So what I've got to do now is add some liquid to it to help kind of cook it and boil it a little bit more easily. But we're going to make sure that we've got these all cooking. I'm going to turn the heat down just a little bit because you can see it's at the smoking point. And I'm using peanut oil because the peanut oil can take the heat, so to speak. All right? Let me make sure that I've got something to scoop this up easily. 1, 2, 3. And again, this is gonna almost give a nice crunchy texture to it all because the tofu itself is kind of spongy. Now that we've got that, I've got to get some liquid into the soup itself. So we're gonna use just some regular chicken stock here, and just enough so that it submerges all of the vegetables in there because we're going to eventually puree it. But we don't want to cook it too quickly. And while this is happening, I'm going to prep the other vegetables for the stir fry itself and also start cutting up on the French fries. All right, these are looking pretty good. I'm just turning these over so that they don't overcook. You can see that the crispiness of the tofu will kind of remain on it because again, the texture of the vegetables can either turn a kid on to the vegetables or make them not want it at all. Great. Okay, we've got the tofu strips ready. We're just gonna put them off to the side and let them rest for a little bit. Because again, these are just gonna be what we top off the stir-fried vegetables, but we're gonna be using the same pan itself. And what I just did was I prepped all my vegetables together. Keep it real simple, nice bright colors. We've got some mushrooms, we've got some snow peas, we've got some carrots, and we even have some corn as well. But let me just set this off to the side because I want to get the French fries going. All right, the French fries themselves are going to be, like I said, hand cut. So what we're going to do is just show you the easiest way to hand cut these fries. And I got to tell you that the best way to do this is in a two-part fashion. One, to make sure that you cook them slowly in a lower temperature oil, and then we're going to let it rest, strain it from all the oils, and then turn the heat up. And that's what makes it so delicious and crispy and just mouth-watering. So the easiest way to cut this is to make sure that we've got a little bit of a base. And then I'm going to use these actually, I'm going to use the skin on these, all right, to give it a little bit more of a rustic flair. And we got to make sure that we cut them all about the same size. So be real careful and just cut these into one little flat chip. Again, all about the same size. And then when you get to this point here, just be real careful. You know, you don't need to make it super precise, but you want to make it precise enough. Now that we've got the one strip in place, guess what we're going to do? We're just going to cut them into fries. Maybe not as fast food, but definitely fast enough. And to keep these from actually turning brown on you before you can actually get the fryer going, I'm going to actually put these in a little bit of some water, some cold water that has some a little hint of acid in it, namely just a squeeze of a lemon, and that'll keep it from turning brown. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to test to see if the oil is hot enough, and it certainly is. The bubbles are not over the top. They're, you know, consistent, and it's not going to bubble over. So I'm going to just make sure I add a little of these cut potatoes in at a time, and not to overcrowd the pan, because you want it to make sure that it cooks evenly. And we're going to do it in batches. So again, this one at a lower temperature, and then we're going to turn the heat up. Now, we have got these carrots continuing to cook. This is going to be the last thing we do because we're going to take an immersion blender and blend it all up. Now let's get the saute and the stir fry. We've got a little bit of the residue from the crispy tofu. Now we're going to add the rest of the vegetables to it as well. And we're going to make a nice, super simple sauce that's going to go with it. And so what we're going to do is add a little bit of garlic to this, taking a look at the fries to make sure that it doesn't burn or overflow, but just letting that cook for a few minutes until it kind of until it gets a little opaque, so to speak. So we've got the garlic that we're going to cook in, sauteing it in a little bit more of the oil, and basically just adding all the vegetables. So we're going to just saute this, mince this up nice and finely, using a little bit of that oil. Now, one of the beautiful things about vegetables, not only that it tastes good, it is so healthy for you. And I think there's like this misnomer, if it's healthy, then it doesn't taste good. Well, that's where, you know, we need to realize that's just not 100% true. Well, these are cooking a little more quickly than I want to, so I'm gonna let them rest a little bit because I gotta take some time, turn the heat down so that it doesn't overcook. Saute these vegetables out. The first thing I want to throw in are the carrots, because that takes a little bit of time. The last thing I'm going to throw in are the mushrooms, because they cook super quick as well. So just sauteing this up. One of the things that I enjoy about Asian food is that they bring out a tremendous amount of flavor in the vegetables, because they will concentrate a lot of heat to it, and it almost brings the flavors out. But just keeping to that understanding that if you think that it's tasty, then it must be bad for you. There's a real spiritual element in there too, because we know full well that the devil loves to sugarcoat bad things for us. And what we want to do is bring the good things forward and even the taste of it. Now we're going to add a little bit of the snow peas to it. We're going to let the mushrooms just settle a little bit. We're going to hit this with a little bit of salt and pepper as well. And I actually have some frozen vegetables, because let's admit it, sometimes you can't get corn, depending on the season. So what we do is we just simply use some of the frozen stuff, because it adds not just a nice sweetness to it, it has a tremendous amount of moisture as well. And then if you put it in some hot oil, it might char it, and that natural sweetness will come out, and it makes it taste really, really good. It's looking beautiful already. And what we're going to do next is just add the mushrooms, and now we're going to add the sauce as well. So the mushrooms go in, and the sauce. The sauce is going to be unique, no doubt. Let me explain what it is. It's been a combination of 3 things. 2 Asian and 1 American. We're going to use basically some soy sauce, as well as an oyster sauce. And we probably want to use just maybe about a teaspoon of that. A teaspoon of oyster sauce as well. And this is a thick sauce too, so you gotta be careful. It's a concentrated flavor. Maybe that was a teaspoon and a half. And then also a teaspoon of just regular ketchup. Perfectly measured. And the best part about this is add a little bit at a time, okay? There's no need to kind of throw it all together and be super, super precise when it comes to stir frying, because the vegetables themselves have so much liquid in them that you don't want to make this too saucy, because then it will be kind of like a soup. You don't want that at all. All right. Basically, you know what? This is almost done. It's just going to have to get plated, and I'm going to turn the heat down so that it doesn't overcook and turn mushy, because remember, mushy vegetables, not going to be good for you. Now, however, we're going to recook these, because we just cooked this at a lower temperature, and now what we're going to do is just cook them again until they turn golden brown. Now, this soup is working out well, and you know, soup is one of those easy ways to hide vegetables, because it's all in there, and with an immersion blender, it's going to make it easy to completely hide it. If you want, you can even throw some spinach in it, but it will turn it green. And green, for some reason, kids just don't like it. The carrots themselves are a nice bright orange, and I hear it's very fashionable as well. Now that we've got this all cooked out, what I'm going to do is just show you and just put it in the immersion blender itself, and we're just going to puree it and pulse it out, and it'll turn nice and creamy. Okay, now that this is all pureed, and you can tell that the carrots were definitely cooked because there was no fight in all of this. As a matter of fact, you want to give the little fork test to the carrots, sticking your fork in it, and if the carrot kind of drops from it, then you know that the carrots are soft enough to do the blend. And that's exactly what we did. Let's let this sit off to the side, and then we are now going to make sure that the potatoes, the French fries, don't overcook. Okay, the fries are definitely cooked. You can see that they turned a nice golden brown. Let these rest, but not in here necessarily. Let them rest in this thing. Strain a little bit of the oil in it, and when it is hot, that's when you add a little bit of salt to it. And what I'm going to do is a couple different batches of this, because I want to make sure that we have just enough, even more crunch and some starch to complete this pure veggie meal. Whenever I think of vegetables and a faith connection, I automatically am brought back to the prophet Daniel and the other prophets who did not want to eat the king's food because it broke God's dietary laws. And so they insisted on eating vegetables, and if they were stronger ever after a certain number of days, then they wouldn't have to break the laws. And you know what? Those vegetables, it worked, because they were not only healthier in body, they were definitely strengthened in their faith. Now what we're ready to do is to plate up this pure vegetable meal. Again, the vegetables themselves are going to retain the natural flavors. Notice we don't have a lot of sauce on this, but we have just enough to kind of complement it all. And so in this little Asian influence kind of stir fry, when I was a kid, I used to love being able to kind of make a plate, a design, kind of layering out and fanning out all of the different vegetables. I'm not there anymore. What I'm going to do is just simply add a whole bunch to the top here. And I'm going to also add some of that tofu that's right on top. Now again, the tofu themselves, kids may or may not like, but I kind of fell in love with them because it doesn't taste like anything, and you can put so much to it. You could either add, some soy sauce to it, or if you want, you can just simply add some Italian seasoned breadcrumbs, as I kind of did right here. And it is going to be a source of protein for you as well. Now the soup itself, I'm going to leave a little side for the fries, all right? That's kind of like my style of eating and cooking. But the soup itself, it's kind of nice. It's a nice, beautiful, bright color. You know, pouring your little spoon like this there, it kind of prevents it from spilling all over the place. Oh, look, I think I missed a couple, but that's all right. Because what you can do is just simply scoop those out later. In fact, I'll do that right now, if you miss one. And then the final thing we're gonna do with this is just to garnish it with a little bit of sour cream, and then just top it off with a little sprig of parsley as well, to give a nice, beautiful contrast in flavors and textures. And then if you want, you can even mince up some of these herbs and just sprinkle it on top. Because I understand that there's even some great health benefits to the parsley as well. I got my second batch, and you've got to do these in batches, which is good because you don't want to like eat a handful of these at all times. But as soon as the oil, as soon as you pull these out of the hot oil, just plop it into something like this. This is when you start to season it with just some simple salt, and it'll stay nice and crispy. And I'm also making with this a nice little mayonnaise. And the mayonnaise that I'm going to use is going to have just some salt, some pepper, and some red cayenne pepper also, to give it a nice little bright color to it. Kids might think it's ketchup, so be careful, but it's not. You know, it's going to be a little bit more flavored. And this is kind of what they do in England. They like to eat mayo, you know, some flavored mayos with their fries. So let's put that out there. And for the fries themselves, here's what I did. I'm just going to simply take a paper towel, just kind of ball it up right down the center, and it will make for a nice little cone that you can just kind of stick here. And I'm going to put the fries in them themselves so that it continues to catch some of the oil. Now be careful, these are still hot, all right? But it kind of helps to kind of make a festive view of your French fries. And like I said, these are going to be a little bit better than fast food, because if you see, we left the peels on them themselves, and there's a lot of nutritional value to this. So if you want, you can just keep it all together right here so that you see a composed dish of nothing but vegetables. I'm always so inspired by vegetarians because they live off of the earth and they have to depend on God's bounty. Now I'm a meat lover myself. I have to admit, I couldn't just eat this only, but this I can eat quite a bit of. And you know what? Just like in the scriptures, when Daniel requested nothing but vegetables, it proved that the things that come from the earth can definitely make us healthier because it comes from God. God made it, and God made it tasting really, really good. So we hope you enjoy this delicious meal with nothing but just vegetables. Pure vegetables that will definitely make you healthy. And of course, when you say a prayer over it, it'll even be good for your soul. See you next time here on EWTN's savoring our faith.